Hello, everyone. My name is Charlotte, and I'm 36 years old. I was once married to Matthew, who is 3 years younger than me. The age difference never bothered either of us, at least, not until recently. I met Matthew at a party hosted by my friend Grace. Grace and Matthew had known each other from the gym. Matthew was incredibly handsome, with a chiseled jawline and a strong build. He had this natural charisma and was always in high spirits. At that time I was single, and Grace, eager to play matchmaker, took it upon herself to introduce me to every eligible bachelor at the party, including Matthew. "Hey, Matthew, meet Charlotte," Grace said with a grin. "She's not only smart but also quite the catch financially." I felt a flush of embarrassment but tried to downplay it. Grace continued, "Don't be shy, it's a compliment." I smiled awkwardly, grateful for the introduction but hoping Grace might have mentioned some of my other qualities. Grace quickly agreed, "Absolutely. She's not just beautiful, but incredibly intelligent, too. You two enjoy your evening, I'll mingle with the other guests." Once Grace wandered off, Matthew, with a curious look, asked, "Why did she call you a nerd?" I explained, "I'm a graphic designer working for a software company, so I'm always busy. That leaves little time for socializing, which is why my friends jokingly call me a nerd." Matthew raised his eyebrows. "That's fascinating. I guess that's why they call you the millionaire nerd, then." We both laughed, and the evening unfolded with easy conversation, and we quickly grew closer. As time passed, Matthew and I spent more time together, dinners, coffees, and chats after he picked me up from work. At the time, he was working as an assistant at a local firm. A few months into dating, Matthew proposed. Though I loved him deeply, I hesitated. I wondered if our relationship was too new, and I worried about the age gap between us. "Matthew, are you sure about this?" I asked. "We've only been together a short time, and you're 3 years younger than me. Are you really serious about us?" He grinned and gently teased, "Charlotte, are you still stuck on that old idea that the husband should be older than the wife?" "It's not just that," I replied, a little defensively. "I just wanted to know if it bothered you." Matthew reassured me with a light laugh, "Chill, Charlotte. You're a modern woman. These old notions don't matter anymore." His confidence in our future together slowly eased my worries. I agreed, and soon after, we met each other's families to share our decision. While my father, Peter, had no reservations and seemed genuinely happy about the wedding, my mother pulled me aside for a private conversation. "Charlotte, honey, I hope you've talked about your finances with Matthew," she whispered, her face showing a trace of concern. "Yes, Mom, don't worry about that," I reassured her. She pressed on, "I just want to make sure that your career success, especially since you're doing so much better than Matthew, doesn't become an issue. You know, sometimes men can feel overshadowed by those things." "Mom, Matthew is really sweet and understanding," I explained. "He doesn't have those kinds of insecurities. He's even agreed to take on more household chores since my schedule is so hectic." "That's good to hear, dear. Just take care of yourself," she said, her tone softening. Despite her reassurance, her words lingered in my mind. I realized I'd never had a detailed conversation about finances with Matthew, nor had I asked him about his income. While my financial independence meant I wasn't overly concerned with his earnings, I recalled that Matthew had asked about my salary even before he proposed. The thought of it unsettled me for a moment, but I chose to push the worries aside, deciding to focus on the excitement of starting our married life together. After the wedding, we celebrated with a honeymoon in Hawaii, a generous wedding gift from my company. We truly embraced the joy of our time together, savoring the beginning of our new life. However, about a month later, Matthew came to me after dinner with a serious expression. "Honey, I'm sorry to ask this, but I need your help," he said, looking uneasy. "What's going on, Matthew? Is everything okay?" I asked, my concern growing. "Well, no. My parents are having some issues," he began. "They live in an apartment on the second floor, and without an elevator, it's becoming difficult for them as they get older." I understood the situation right away. "I see. Why not move them to a ground floor unit, or somewhere with an elevator?" I suggested. Matthew hesitated, then steered the conversation in another direction. Actually, Charlotte, I was thinking more along the lines of building a house for them, he admitted, surprising me with his proposal. I paused, taken aback. Okay, but I hope you realize how expensive it is to build a house, I replied, trying to grasp the scope of his idea. I tried to gauge Matthew's understanding of the financial commitment he was suggesting. Do you realize how much this will cost? I asked, hoping to get a sense of his plan. Yeah, I know, Matthew replied, though his tone lacked confidence. I pressed further. Do you have enough savings, or are you thinking about taking out a loan? Matthew hesitated for a moment before answering. Charlotte, I was actually hoping you could lend me the money to build the house, he said, his request catching me completely off guard. I was stunned, unsure of how to respond. Wait, what? But you know I've been saving to buy my own house someday, right? Yeah, but since you earn well, I thought it wouldn't be a problem for you, Matthew said, his voice taking on a more assertive tone. But Matthew, I'm not sure I can lend that much money, I replied, feeling the pressure mounting. Why not? He asked, his frustration starting to show. I was at a loss for words. I finally managed to say, okay, let me think about it. I'll let you know. I'll wait for your answer, he said, leaving the conversation hanging in the air. That night, I couldn't sleep. I spent hours turning the situation over in my mind. Lending my hard-earned savings to build a house for his parents felt risky. My money was meant for my own future security, including buying a home and saving for retirement. The next morning, as I was heading out for work, Matthew hugged me and said, I'll be waiting for your decision. Let's talk over the weekend. I know you're in a rush now. Conflicted and uneasy, I sought advice from a colleague. She suggested I make the financial arrangement official with a contract. Have Matthew sign an agreement to ensure he repays you, she advised. It's important to protect your interests. That sounded like a sensible approach, so that evening I told Matthew, I can lend you the money, but you'll need to sign a contract agreeing to repay me within 4 years. To my surprise, Matthew didn't hesitate. Okay, I'll sign it, he said. When I handed him the papers, though, his laughter at the mention of the legal implications made it clear he hadn't fully grasped the seriousness of the situation. I'm serious, Matthew, I said, holding his gaze until he realized I wasn't joking. Here are the papers. He sighed, rolled his eyes, and with a smirk, said, Fine, I'll sign. And he did. After I transferred the money and Matthew signed the contract, I thought the legal safeguards would ease my concerns, but despite those protections, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. Matthew's salary wasn't substantial, and I doubted his ability to repay the loan. Then, his behavior began to shift in ways I couldn't ignore. Since taking the loan, Matthew became increasingly distant and his actions more peculiar. He started coming home late, often too exhausted to help around the house. Whenever I voiced my frustrations, he brushed them off, claiming his job was overwhelming. My feelings for him began to fade as he grew more detached, spending most weekends overseeing the construction of his parents' new home and, at times, not coming home at all. Instead, he opted to stay at his parents' place, further deepening the rift between us. The situation was taking its toll on me. I could no longer ignore the growing distance between us, and I decided it was time to confront Matthew. Matthew, do you realize how distant you've become? It feels like you're taking advantage of living here without contributing anything, I said, frustration bubbling to the surface. His response was sharp and dismissive. What do you mean? How dare you accuse me like that? You knew my financial situation when we married. You chose this. I was stunned by his audacity. Excuse me, I'm not trying to start an argument, but how can you be so indifferent? I'm even more upset about this housewarming party at your parents' new place tomorrow. A party for the house I funded, which you never even told me was finished. Matthew almost scoffed. Oh, my bad, I must have forgotten. Please, be our guest, he said nonchalantly, then left the house humming, as if utterly unbothered by the gravity of our conversation. Fuming with anger, I wanted to lash out, to break something, but I managed to hold myself together. An hour later, I received a call from my mother-in-law. Hello, just calling to let you know we're having a housewarming party at the new house tomorrow, she said casually. I hung up without saying another word. I was certain that Matthew had prompted her to invite me, not out of genuine desire, but simply as an afterthought. His indifference, paired with the casual invitation from his mother, left me deeply hurt and questioning the very foundation of our relationship. I had always been wary of Matthew's relationship with his mother, especially given her cold demeanor toward me from our first meeting, which had only worsened after our wedding. Despite this, I didn't want to create more tension between us. I worried that if I skipped the event, Matthew and his mother would use it against me, accusing me of being envious of their new home. Reluctantly, I decided to go. I decided to attend the housewarming, determined to maintain a composed, if somewhat forced, demeanor. As I arrived at the newly built house, I couldn't help but notice the entrance, beautifully adorned with floral decorations. Matthew and his mother were greeting guests warmly. When my mother-in-law saw me, her reaction was far from enthusiastic. "Oh, you came. I thought you wouldn't bother," she remarked with a hint of surprise. "Why would you think that?" Matthew chimed in, before ushering me inside. Inside, I was met more warmly by my father-in-law, who was sitting alone. His genuine smile and the sincere gratitude he expressed for my financial help were the only moments of comfort in an otherwise uncomfortable evening. It was painfully clear that neither Matthew nor his mother had acknowledged my contribution to their new home. Throughout the evening, I felt more and more isolated. Matthew and his mother barely interacted with me, leaving me to engage in half-hearted conversations with distant relatives. I found myself counting down the moments until I could leave what was rapidly becoming a toxic atmosphere. After most of the guests had departed, I approached my father-in-law to say goodbye. "Take care of yourself," I said kindly. Just then, my mother-in-law interjected sharply, "You don't need to worry about my husband. Focus on your husband instead of neglecting him." Confused and upset, I responded, "What do you mean? I've never neglected Matthew. He volunteered to help with chores because I work full-time, too." Her accusations grew harsher. "You've been a terrible wife, forcing my son to do all the work around the house. And how could you coerce him into signing that financial agreement? You've been nothing but cruel to him." "I haven't forced Matthew into anything. The agreement was mutual, to ensure financial security. How can you say I've abused or tortured him?" I replied, shocked by her words. At that moment, my father-in-law stood up for me. "Marilyn, stop. Why are you attacking her instead of appreciating what she's done for us?" But Marilyn wasn't having it. "Just stay out of this and go inside," she snapped at him. The situation was excruciating, and it was clear that no amount of reasoning would change her view of me. As the evening went on, I became more disillusioned with both my relationship and the family dynamics I had found myself tangled in. I was completely taken aback by Marilyn's rude behavior toward Alan and, soon after, her cruel words toward me. "You should be grateful my son even married you. Who else would marry someone old and unattractive like you?" she sneered. Her words stung deep, and I lost my temper. "How can you speak to me like this?" I retorted, my voice rising with frustration. Matthew quickly intervened, scolding me. "Charlotte, watch your language. How dare you raise your voice at my mother?" "Didn't you hear how she just insulted me?" I replied, bewildered by his lack of support. Matthew dismissed me with a roll of his eyes. "I can't deal with your tantrums anymore," Matthew snapped. "Tantrums? Do you see how both you and your mother are treating me?" I exclaimed. "I can't stand to be around this negativity anymore. I don't want any part of it in my new dream home. Just get out." Matthew's response was cold and cutting. "What? Yes, I don't want to live with someone as despicable as you. You've been living off my income, and now you call me trash? You're pathetic. Charlotte, let's be clear, you married me because you thought you couldn't land someone as handsome as me, given your age and looks, even though I wasn't earning much. So, you have no right to complain about money now." A surge of anger and betrayal rushed through me. "I can't stay with someone so shallow. I want a divorce, and I want my money back," I yelled. Matthew laughed maliciously. "Sure, go ahead and get your divorce, but remember, you'll have to pay me if you want it." "What the hell? You should be the one to pay, since you want the divorce," I argued back. Matthew's demeanor turned sinister, a side of him I had never seen before. "You'll have to give back the money I lent you, or I'll sue you," I threatened. "Go ahead and find your stupid papers first." Mocking me, he retorted, "You're wasting your time." Feeling numb and utterly defeated, I left. They had insulted and degraded me beyond endurance. I went straight to the bank, where I had secured the papers in a locker, only to discover the document was missing. When I checked the bank log, I saw that Matthew had accessed the locker months ago. We had opened the joint account after our wedding, intending for both of us to contribute, but it turned out I was the only one putting money in. This revelation only deepened my shock and sense of betrayal. After the unsettling discovery, I checked my wardrobe, where I also kept a copy of the loan agreement, but it too was gone. It became painfully clear how deeply Matthew had manipulated our relationship from the start: his charm at Grace's party, his focus on my financial status, living comfortably off my earnings, and emotionally pressuring me to finance his parents' house. Every move had been calculated. His final act? Attempting to steal the agreement to prevent me from reclaiming my money. But I had anticipated his deceit. Sensing his eventual betrayal, I had taken the precaution of keeping the original documents at my parents' house, storing copies at the bank and in my wardrobe. Despite the emotional turmoil and the insults I endured, I was relieved I had trusted my instincts. I immediately called my mom and explained everything. She was furious. "You need to sue Matthew and his mother for everything they've done," she suggested. During our conversation, she confessed, "I've always had doubts about Matthew's intentions." "Did you know about his motives?" I asked. "No, not exactly," she replied, "but I sensed his eagerness wasn't genuine. He rushed into marriage so quickly." "You're right, Mom. I should have been more cautious. When you asked if we discussed our finances, I lied and said we had. I never really did, nor did I inquire about his earnings, because I wasn't concerned about his money. Take this as a lesson, dear. Don't trust someone so readily," she advised me with a heavy heart but clear mind. I hired a lawyer and prepared the divorce papers. I included an official notice demanding that Matthew repay the borrowed amount within 4 years. If he failed to comply, the court would be authorized to sell his property to reimburse me. When Matthew and his mother received the divorce papers and repayment notice, they were caught off guard. Suddenly, they were the ones feeling desperate, trying to reach out to me, but I was resolute in my decision to protect myself from further deceit. I ignored all their attempts to contact me, blocking their numbers. Matthew even tried to reach my parents, but they dismissed his calls. He left a voicemail on my office phone apologizing, professing his love, claiming he was misled by his mother's influence, and hoping for reconciliation. But Matthew's history of manipulating my emotions had taught me to be wary. I deleted the voicemail and ensured his number stayed blocked. Matthew's lawyer later sent a message, pleading for me to forgive at least 60% of the debt, citing Matthew's inability to meet the repayment terms due to his low salary. I dismissed the request outright. After everything, the deceit, the personal attacks, it was unthinkable to me that he would expect any leniency. 4 years dragged by. Matthew struggled to gather even half of the owed amount, resorting to taking out loans. Given his modest income, the bank's loan offerings were insufficient, and he was forced to sell the house he had once banished me from. Ultimately, he moved back into his parents' old apartment. Grace, a mutual friend, informed me that the local community had turned cold toward Matthew and his family after the truth emerged. Marilyn, his mother, resorted to working as a nanny, her behavior having alienated her from many. Matthew faced ostracization at work, which led him to resign and relocate to another city. Even Alan, Matthew's father, left Marilyn and moved to the countryside to retire in peace. Amid these developments, my personal life took a positive turn. I began dating Wayne, a 37-year-old colleague. We had known each other for years but only connected romantically after an office party, a year following my divorce. This time, I approached the relationship with caution, taking the time to understand and appreciate our connection before making any serious commitments. Reflecting on everything, I felt no sympathy for Matthew or Marilyn. Their outcomes were just consequences of their actions. Meanwhile, I enjoyed the budding relationship with Wayne, cherishing our moments together and looking forward to what the future might hold.